All right, so I've hit the record button and I'm ready to start today's NCR CounterPoint Overview. Now, I'm going to mute everybody's phone because I want to make sure you can have side conversations and background noise in your office and that it doesn't distract others from the session. At the end of the hour, I will unmute everybody's phone so that, you know, if you want to ask questions at the end, we'll have a Q&A time. You'll be able to do so. In fact, let me point out that those of you watching this through live meeting, at the top of your screen, you should see something called the Q&A Manager. You can type your questions in that area, and that will get them in the queue for the end of the session. Those of you watching this by Join Me has a chat. So it's the second icon in at the top of your screen. And again, if you want to just get your questions into the queue, that would be one way to do it. Or at the end of the session, I will unmute everybody's phone. So if you're more comfortable just asking your questions, feel free to do that at the end of the session. So bear with me while I mute the phones.
Yes, you can unmute your one by pressing *6.
Okay, I'm back and you are all muted and we are ready to start today's session. So as I mentioned, I'm going to spend just a few minutes going through a couple of slides. I want most of this hour to be spent looking live at the software. But let's start with what is CounterPoint. And CounterPoint, well, those of you that might be musical, you might know that term as a musical term that combines different textures into a melody. And I think of CounterPoint, the software, as much the same thing. We're taking multiple business applications, customer tracking, inventory tracking, purchasing, label generation, all these different business applications, and we've rolled them into one product called NCR CounterPoint. CounterPoint is being run in more than 17,000 sites, and it's sold by the NCR channel partners out in the field. So our hope is that there's someone semi-local to you who can really come in and learn your business, do the discovery, and then together you can make you can have a good idea about whether or not you think CounterPoint is a good product for you. Now, I mentioned we have more than 17,000 sites here. I've tried to just give you a flavor of who some of those customers are. You can see here that we've got everyone from Batteries Plus, that's one of our larger CounterPoint users with more than 400 locations, down to the Biltmore estate, which is really just one site, but it's one large campus where they run multiple gift shops, and they even use us in their winery at the Biltmore. And then, of course, everything in between. We're at Yankee Stadium, Cowboy Stadium. We're at Archivers, a large chain of scrapbook stores. Nintendo and Jelly Belly run us in their corporate stores. And again, this is just to name a few. The whole idea being that you understand CounterPoint can run whether you're a small mom and pop type shop all the way up to hundreds of locations. Now, CounterPoint is at the center of everything we do and certainly the focus of today's session, but I always like to make sure you understand that it's our whole suite of products that really allow us to provide a more complete solution. Things like our integrated e-commerce and our integrated email marketing. In fact, we've got separate webinars on these products, and if you're interested in attending one of those, put something in the Q&A manager and I'll help direct you to how to sign up for one of those at the end of this session. But one of the best things about the integrated e-commerce and the integrated email marketing is that they share the same database with CounterPoint. So you only ever have to maintain one central database, and that one database can run your brick and mortar, your web stores, as well as handle your email marketing campaigns. Next is Smart Alerts, and Smart Alerts is a way for you to get an instant text or email message about events going on in the store. So you're able to set what you want to be alerted about. For example, you may want to get a text message if there's an excessive number of voided tickets or price overrides. Or maybe you just want to get a flash sales report at the end of every day. Or maybe you have problems sometimes settling your credit cards and you want to know if a batch didn't settle. So these are all examples of the alerts that you're able to set. There are more than 30 alerts, and that way you can really be on the in the know while you're on the go. So if you're not going to be in the store, it might be really good to be getting these text or email messages to kind of keep up with what's going on. Of course, hardware. Now, NCR is probably best known for hardware, and there's that exception applies here as well. In fact, we are one of the few vendors in this point-of-sale space that actually develop the software and manufacture the hardware. And there's a lot of goodness in knowing that those two are made to work together. Now, I'll also mention that we do not require you use NCR hardware to run CounterPoint. We certainly hope if you're looking for hardware as well as software, you will let our business partners talk to you about the NCR touchscreen terminals, but again, it's not a requirement. The last one I want to mention, in fact, I've got a couple of additional slides, is CP Mobile. CP Mobile is a way for you to use an iPhone, an iPod Touch, or even an iPad. And with these devices, we give you a couple of different pieces of functionality. The first one is point of sale. So point of sale would let you do line busting within a store, or even let you make sales remotely on one of these devices. Maybe you're at a trade show and want to sell merchandise, or you want to have a sidewalk sale. Now, the way we're able to let you do that, have these remote sales happening, is we sell a piece of hardware called a sled. And the sled slips, oops, bear with me one moment. Had a little bit of audio problem there. The sled slips right over the iPhone or the iPod Touch, and it adds the ability to scan a barcode. So if your merchandise is barcoded, it's simple to add to the ticket on this remote device. It also adds a mag stripe reader. So that's how you're able to complete the sale, actually run the customer's credit card, and finalize the transaction, and then email the receipt or print it to a Bluetooth-type printer. Now, we didn't stop with just point of sale. We want these devices to be multi-purpose for you. So if you need them for point of sale, if there's a long line of people waiting to check out and you want to pick one up and use it to do line busting, you can do that. Furthermore, it works to do physical count. So when you're ready to do your physical count, whether that's your annual or a cycle count you have throughout the year, again, you can pick up one of these devices and use it to count your inventory. And we've got a lot of plans for CP Mobile. We have a lot of additional features we'd like to add. So who is behind all these great features and functions I've talked about so far? Well, it's NCR Corporation, and here at NCR we've been providing retailers technology for over 125 years. On this slide, I just wanted to depict a day in the life with NCR. In fact, I think probably everybody on the call interacts with NCR every day, whether you're pumping gas and using our pay-at-the-pump type technology, whether you're simply shopping at a retail store or eating at a restaurant, whether you're getting your boarding pass at the airport. These are all different ways that you interact with NCR on a day-to-day basis. And I guess my main point here is simply to let you know there's a big, stable company behind the CounterPoint product. The last slide before I launch the software is to let you know that we really want to make sure you're successful with CounterPoint. We hope you choose CounterPoint, and if you do, you'll find that after the sale, we continue to provide webinars, recordings of previous webinars. Some of you who were on earlier heard me talking to one of our existing customers about our library of training recordings if you're a self-learner, or if you prefer hand-holding and training with an instructor. We offered that. We have tutorials, online help. So really we understand that to adequately use a system that you buy, you need to first learn it. You need to know what it does, and then you need continuing education so that when you decide to add that loyalty program on down the road, you're comfortable that you've got a good way to learn about how to add that piece of functionality. So that's just an example, but just to let you know that we really do try to ensure your success by continuing to educate you. We also foster a user community. So we host an annual user conference. We had it in Atlanta last August and had about 400 of our users attend, and it was a wonderful two-day event where they taught us a lot about what we can do to improve our products to help them be better retailers. They learned a lot from each other, and hopefully they learned a lot from the NCR staff that was there as well. All right, so that is what I wanted to cover via PowerPoint. Bear with me, and I am going to share my desktop, and we will get started with our live look at CounterPoint. Now, I know sometimes there can be a lag on these webinars, so I want to try to remain aware of that, and my hope is by now everyone is looking at one example of what the CounterPoint main menu might look like. And I say one example because there are many different levels of security built into CounterPoint. It's a PCI DSS compliant product, which is really more of a credit card compliancy. But you also have levels where you can lock out certain features for certain users, and that comes all the way down to the menu you're looking at. So when somebody from your store logs in, you can control which options they see and therefore what they're able to do within the CounterPoint product. Now for today's session, I've turned on every option and I've given myself permission to do everything in the software. So just bear that in mind that as I'm going through the different features and functions, you are able to protect certain areas from certain users. And so just, bear that in mind. All right, so let's get started. What I'd like to do is just walk through a high-level overview of the menu. We'll start there, and first is point of sale, and this is, of course, where counter sales happen. This is where returns take place. This is where orders can be entered and fulfilled. CounterPoint has a complete order management built right into it. So if you do mail order or special orders in store or have web orders flowing in, then you would use the order management piece to take those orders through a fulfillment process. That would let you print picking tickets and packing slips and ultimately release a group of orders. Next is inventory, and here's where you can define the items that you're selling. This is also where you'll come to price those items, and CounterPoint has a really robust pricing engine. So whether you want to do things like buy one, get one free, or maybe price based on who the customer is or how many they're buying, or maybe you just want to run a limited time promotion for a certain date range. Well, these are all examples of price rules that you're able to set so that at the register, those prices just happen automatically. Customers are next, and here's where you can set up who's shopping in the store. Now, there is a feature in point of sale that lets you add a customer on the fly. So quite often, your customer data might be set up from point of sale, in which case you'll use this menu option to really just maintain that data. Also, CounterPoint has a customer loyalty program. That's functionality that's built right into the base system. So if you want to start a program that lets your customers earn points, and then you can reward them based on what they've earned, again, that's something that CounterPoint can do for you. Purchasing is next, and here's where you set up the vendors that you're going to buy your products from. This is also where you'll come to get advice on what CounterPoint thinks you need to reorder. And we do that based on either min-max, replenishment, so we can look at dates in the past and suggest you reorder based on that volume, or days of supply. So if you just need a 30-day supply of something, again, we can look at past dates to get the activity volume and then figure out how many you need to last for 30 days or 14 days or whatever the days of supply you need is listed as. Sales history is next. Now, here's where we keep all of the data on who bought what, when they bought it, what they paid for it, all of that great marketing data, right? In fact, I mentioned our integrated email marketing. It's called Customer Connect. I mentioned that earlier. Here's where Customer Connect gets all of its brains, right here from sales history. So we let you create segmented email marketing campaigns based on data like what customers have bought before. Maybe you're tracking their favorite color, and you have something new in the store that's purple, and you just want to send an email campaign to everyone who said their favorite color is purple. Or maybe you just want to send a campaign to everyone who hasn't shopped in a certain number of days. So again, it's really nice that our product we wrote, Customer Connect, is completely integrated to your CounterPoint system. E-commerce is next, and I also already mentioned our integrated e-commerce. Basically, the idea is that here in CounterPoint, you mark whether or not an item is also an e-commerce item, and that's how we know what to publish up to the website. So you're just tracking one set of data for both your web and your brick and mortar. Time cards, simply put, this is where your employees can clock in and clock out, and we will keep up with the hours worked. Now, we use that information in some of our sales history reports. So if you want to see a ratio of sales rep dollars by hour, for example, we have that type of report. And some of our channel partners even can help you take this data. We'll let you export it out to a CSV file, and then it can potentially be handed off to a payroll processor like ADP. Data interchange is next, and simply put, this is where data can be brought in or exported out of CounterPoint. So it's a nice user front end to getting data in or out of the system. Let's say that you have a vendor who's going to supply you price updates electronically on a regular basis. Well, you can use data interchange to build a file definition that tells CounterPoint what that vendor's data looks like and where that data goes in CounterPoint, so that once you've built that file definition once, as long as the vendor doesn't change their format, you have an easy way to just bring in data and update pricing or bring in a new line of merchandise or bring in whatever data might be appropriate. System and setup are just global options where you come tell CounterPoint how you're going to use it. And then last is an example of how you might tailor the menu. So I talked about this earlier. I think I mostly referred to removing menu options to take away functionality. But here's an example of how you might add a menu option. So in my Memphis gift shop, by the way, I think I mentioned this earlier, I'm located in the NCR Memphis office. So today's session I'm going to use a Memphis gift shop. And in my Memphis gift shop, what I've done with this menu option called Andy's Reports if I press that button, you'll see that I've organized all the things that I do during the course of a day, so they're all right here on one convenient menu. For example, the vendor analysis, well, I could navigate over to purchasing reports and go find my vendor analysis there, but instead, because it's something I run on a regular basis, I've put it right here on my Andy's Reports menu, and again, all those things that I like to look at on a daily basis, I've put them here so it's convenient to get to them. Now, you'll notice that I've got Excel here as well, so just so you know, what you put on this menu does not have to be CounterPoint specific. If you find yourself going to Excel or other applications a lot during the day, it might be more convenient to put those applications right on the CounterPoint menu. All right, I am going to press the main menu button at the top of the screen to get back to the CounterPoint main menu, and then I'm going to press the home button just to the left of that, and that's going to launch one example of what the point of sale screen might look like. And just like that main menu I talked about earlier, this screen is also completely configurable. You'll see I have a number of buttons here on the upper right side of the screen, but in your store, you might want more buttons, or you might want fewer buttons, or you might need to put the buttons on the left side of the screen on certain stations for left-handed clerks. So you've really got the ability to make this your own. Furthermore, you'll notice that I got pretty colorful on the buttons. I like it to be pretty colorful like that, but if you have a brand to represent, for example, I mentioned earlier that CounterPoint is used at Texas Stadium. So when the Dallas Cowboys play, when you go buy a T-shirt or an item of some type and you check out, that's CounterPoint. And they've branded their buttons blue and white to represent their brand. So again, you're really able to brand this and make it your own. All right, I am going to start off just running a quick sale. I want everyone to see how simple it is to use CounterPoint. So I'm going to scan a belt buckle. Notice I've got a picture of the belt buckle displaying on the right side of the screen. That's optional, but we do support item and customer images. You'll see at the bottom of the screen the total amount due is $27.50, tax and all. And down here on the bottom right, I've set up my top 3 payment methods. So if the customer handed me a $50 bill, for example, I could just press the $50 bill button to complete the sale, calculate the change due, open the cash drawer, take that belt buckle out of inventory. So now we're tracking turn rates and profitability and all the metrics you want to track with the system. Now, you can set CounterPoint up so that at the completion of a sale, the receipt prints automatically. Or you can set it up as I've done. Maybe you want your salespeople to start asking customers if they'd like to get their receipt by email. We actually released this feature about 1.5 years ago, and our merchants they weren't sure customers would want to hand over their email address, but what we've learned is that consumers love this. They love the idea of you sending that receipt to their email so that you're filing it away for them, and if they ever do need the receipt, they just go to their email and there it is. So, and of course for you there are a lot of benefits. You're going to potentially spend less money on paper and ink. You can be a little bit greener by not using so much paper. And of course the best benefit of all is a way to collect the customer's email address so you can send them those segmented, targeted email campaigns. Now I'm going to press the preview button. I do want to preview an example of what a receipt might look like. And just like everything else I've said this morning, this is also configurable. Most of our merchants embed their logo here at the top of the receipt. You'll notice I have some special messages. Welcome to our store. Down at the bottom, I've got our website. I'm talking about an event. So what we do is we try to make it very simple for you to change these messages out so that you can keep them timely and use this as a marketing tool. You'll also notice that I have a barcode printing at the bottom of the receipt, and that comes in handy if you're going to use one of our features called a validated return. With a validated return, if the customer has to bring something back and they bring their receipt, you're able to simply scan the barcode at the register, and that's going to return the items from history. And that's going to ensure that you're refunding what the customer paid and not necessarily what the item is selling for today. Also, with a validated return, we're going to mark those items in history as having been returned. So if you later want to report on that information, it's all there and available for you to report on. All right, so that was kind of a quick and easy sale. Let's look next at what happens if there is no barcode on an item. So let me draw your attention up here to the upper right side of the screen. Let's say somebody's in my Memphis gift shop. They're standing at the register holding a book on Graceland, and there is no barcode or ISBN number on the book. Well, I can always hit this item lookup button, or I could have pressed F9. There are keyboard equivalents for everything, so you don't have to use a touch screen to use this interface. By the way, I'm not using a touch screen today. I'm using my laptop to drive this demo. All right, so back to our scenario. Somebody's standing in my Memphis gift shop holding a book on Graceland. Well, I can start typing the word Graceland here in the keyword field, and you'll notice that as I typed, my list of items immediately got shorter. In fact, it's very clear why these bottom two items are showing up. We can clearly see the word Graceland. It's not quite so clear why those top two items are showing up. So let me show another feature called the Column Designer. Now let me remind everyone of something I said earlier. I've given myself permission to do everything in the software today. So Column Designer is probably not something you'd have a point of sale clerk doing, but I did want to show this feature. So let's talk for a second about the Column Designer. Here on the right, these are my current visible columns. So that's item number, description, department, and so on. Here on the left are all of the fields I could optionally show in my lookup. I love this. This means you don't have to rely on our programmers hard coding in what you have to see in your lookups. And instead, we want to give you the flexibility to see the data that's important to you in your store. And so here's how we do that. In fact, let me go find the long description. I'm going to add it so it's a visible column. In fact, I'm going to move it up, and I'm going to remove the regular description. And when I say OK, voila, you'll see that I just quickly and easily changed what we're looking at here in the item lookup screen. And now that we're looking at the long description instead of the short description, well, now it's clear why those top two items were showing up. It's because the word Graceland was part of the long description. Now, back to the keyword for a second. It's a partial string search, so I can actually hit the space bar and start typing another word. And now I've got my list called down to the only book on Graceland I've got in my inventory. Now, while we're still here in the item lookup screen, let me draw your attention down here to the bottom right, to the zoom button. I want to zoom in on that book on Graceland and see more about it. Now, just like that column designer we looked at a second ago, here in the Zoom, if I come down here to the Options button, I have the ability to change the data on this screen too, just like the column designer we looked at a moment ago. I'm not going to take you through that, but just know that if there's data you need to see in the Zoom that we're not currently showing, or maybe, for example, here I'm showing bin location, maybe you're not tracking bins and you want to remove data, again, it's a very simple process to do that. Now, here is one of the first views of multiple stores. So you can see that I have 4 Memphis gift shops. And right now I can see whether or not I have that book on Graceland available at one of my other locations. I can also see things like recent sales of that book, or maybe I want to know who the vendors are that I can buy that book from. CounterPoint does a really good job of tracking multiple vendors for an item. Here's my open purchase orders for that book on Graceland. In fact, let me point something out here. Notice that the purchase order number is underlined. In CounterPoint, that means it's a hyperlink, and anywhere you see something underlined like that, you're able to click on it and drill into more information. So, if I wanted to find out how many of those Graceland books were on order with the vendor, I could just hit that PO number, launch my View Purchase Order screen, come here to the Lines tab, and see that there are 23 Graceland books on order with the vendor. All right, so that is an item lookup and an item zoom, and the concept of lookups and zooms are throughout CounterPoint. So we just did item lookups and item zooms, but you have the same ability looking up customers, vendors, users on the system, tickets and ticket history. Again, you're going to find these lookup and zoom icons throughout the product. All right, I'd like to step through a few of these buttons that I've defined. I'll start here with my Elvis prints. Now, I'm going to press that button, and you're going to see that it doesn't sell anything. What it does is takes me to another page of buttons where I can see my 16 by 20 prints and my 20 by 25 Elvis prints. I'm going to sell this one called Elvis with Guitar because I want to show another feature. This feature is the ability to try to upsell a ticket. I've used a feature in CounterPoint called kit processing to do this. And so here when I sell that Elvis with Guitar print, first of all, you'll see that it's added to the ticket, but I've set it up to remind the clerk to ask the customer, hey, would you like a frame to go with your photo? And if the customer says yes, all you have to do is hit the yes button, and you'll see it adds the frame to the ticket. If I had said no, it would not have added the frame to the ticket. So a lot of different ways we give you to try to upsell the ticket, and also different methods for processing a kit or a bundle of items. In fact, we're going to look at least one other before we're done. All right, I'm going to press this main menu button at the top of the screen to get back to my main CounterPoint menu because I want to talk next about selling clothing or shoes. In fact, before I use this apparel department button, let me first just scan an Elvis Original t-shirt. And you'll notice that I scanned it and it added the t-shirt to the ticket, and it never stopped and asked about a color or a size. That's because the barcode told CounterPoint what color and size to take out of inventory. So what happens if there's a piece of clothing or a pair of shoes that doesn't have a barcode on it? Well, let's take a look at that. In fact, this time let's use my apparel department button. Let's navigate over and sell that exact same Elvis Original t-shirt, only this time because I didn't use a barcode, you're able to see what the user interface looks like if there's a piece of merchandise without a barcode on it. Now, let me point out, I've set this Elvis Original T-shirt up as a 2-dimensional grid. I've got one dimension tracking color and the second one tracking size. I want to mention that CounterPoint supports up to a 3-dimensional grid. So if any of you listening today sell shoes and you want to track color, size, and width, for example, you'd be able to do that. Let's go on and just sell a white extra large. I want to highlight that we let you have a different selling price for every cell on the grid. So that extra large I just sold, you'll see is $4 more than the one I sold before it that wasn't an extra large. CounterPoint also, we do a very good job of pricing by location as well. So if any of you out there have multiple stores and you want to sell the same item at a different price at every store, again, CounterPoint lets you set up and do just that. All right, back to our main page of buttons. Next, I want to go to our music and book category, where I'm going to sell the Essential Elvis CD. And when I do, listen to what happens. Okay, Elvis has now officially left the building. Hopefully you could hear that. It was kind of soft, but I basically played a clip of some Elvis music. And really, I just wanted to let you know that CounterPoint has the ability to play a music clip or even show a video clip. In fact, let's talk about that for a second. Let me get out of the system for just a second. What I've done is I've put up on the screen one example of what a customer display device might look like. So, of course, a customer display needs to show the customer what you're ringing up and lets them verify what price you're selling it to them at. But notice that down on the lower left, we're letting you run a series of advertisements. So if you wanted to show an image of the item here that you're selling, or a video clip, or just do what I'm doing, which is just show a line of advertisements, you're able to do that. So if you've got an event coming to the store, or you want to try to upsell the ticket right there at the register, or in some industries, you're actually able to sell ad space to your vendors. So I know in the specialty food industry that happens a lot. So if you have vendors who might pay you to be customer-facing, again, that might be a quicker way for you to get a return on investment on your system. All right, let's get back over to the point of sale and continue the regularly scheduled programming here. I am going to, again, press the main menu button at the top. I just want to mention briefly that CounterPoint has the ability to sell and redeem gift cards. That's built right into the base system. We also have a gift registry option if any of you out there sell china or baby products, or simply want to let your customers have a wish list. That's something that our gift registry could do for you. The gift basket button is another example of a kit. So I'm going to press that button, and you'll see that I'm selling the gift basket for one item at one price, but I'm taking out of inventory all of the components that I defined go with that kit. We even let you do things like substitute components. You can increase or decrease the selling price of in this example, the basket, just depending on what you substitute in the way of components. Next is the Gifts Under $25 button, and I'm going to press that, and you're going to see that item lookup screen much like I showed earlier, only this time that button I pressed was preset to filter on price one. So it's not just my full set of items. Right now, we're only looking at those items under $25. So if somebody had walked in my Memphis gift shop and said, I love Elvis and I've only got $25 to spend, I now have a great way to get to the merchandise in their price range. There's a lot of different ways you can use these filtered lookup buttons. They can filter on whatever you want them to filter on. If you're a camera store and you want a button that says Nikon camera bodies, you can press that button and it will just show all the camera bodies from the vendor Nikon and the category camera body. So again, you've got a way to kind of organize your data on buttons to make it simple for your people to get to the right data. Now let's say that in my first example, let's say that this customer wants a piece of paper to walk around the store with so they know everything in their price range. Well, here on the right under Options, I think this is a really nice feature in CounterPoint. You can always turn a lookup screen into a quick report right on the fly. Now, I could have printed that to a printer. I selected to view it on the screen because I wanted you to be able to see it, but you can see that I just created a quick report of just my items under $25. And so now I can hand that to the customer. Or, let me point out, here on the upper left, anytime you've previewed a report to the screen, you always have this export button on the upper left. So if I now want to take this report and make it a PDF file, maybe I want to email it to somebody or drop it into Word, or let's go on and just drop this one right into the Excel application. You'll see that literally with just a couple of clicks of my mouse, I was able to take that list of items under $25 and drop it right into Excel. And so now I can do pivot tables and all the great things that Excel gives me. And I guess my main point is just to let you know we make it very simple with CounterPoint to get the data out of the system. All right, next is my Print and Frame special button. Here I can just illustrate how one button can sell a frame, a print, and apply a $5 off coupon. Here on the Order Function button, I want to point out that CounterPoint can process orders, layaways, back orders, or special orders. In fact, let me get back to my main page of buttons. We also, if you look to the far right, can process a drop ship order. So if you have vendors who will let you sell merchandise without bringing it into the store, of course that's a great benefit to you. You don't have to put out inventory dollars, but if the customer wants to buy it, maybe you've got a catalog in the store or some kind of a signage that is promoting that item, CounterPoint will actually track which customer placed the dropship order. It will automatically create the purchase order to the vendor, and it will also automatically clear the customer's order, once the vendor has told you they've drop shipped it. So it's a really nice automated process around that feature. Now let's go back one button because I certainly want to talk briefly about the message center that's built into CounterPoint. It's really a closed email system, so you're able to communicate with employees either within one store or across multiple stores. Our CounterPoint merchants use this feature all of the time to share information about new product lines. Everybody wants their salespeople to know the products well so they can do a good job selling those items. And so here's one way to bring data in and share it with everybody so they are educated on the new products that you're selling. Or maybe you're going to have a company meeting. Whatever it might be, you have the ability to send messages in a closed manner without having to open up to something like Outlook. And furthermore, in fact, let me press the button at the top to start a new message. So I can highlight here that we'll even let you do an instant or a pop-up message. I know I mentioned earlier we're running at a lot of what I call attractions. So we're running at Cowboy Stadium. We're running at a lot of zoos and aquariums. We're running here in Memphis at the Elvis Presley Enterprise on their campus. And they love this pop-up feature because if a child wanders away from its family or, there's some emergency where you need to broadcast a message to everyone logged into CounterPoint, well, we give you the ability to do just that. All right, these last 4 buttons I want to cover briefly, then move on to the next section. First of all, hold and recall. So if somebody's come in and you've rung up a bunch of items and they say, uh-oh, I left my wallet in the car. Well, of course, we give you a way to suspend the transaction. Most importantly, you can ring up additional sales at this point, and then when they come back with their wallet, you can recall that transaction and finalize it at that time. Let me mention, I picked these 16 buttons to kind of highlight today, but we have close to 100 different button actions. So, it's very possible there's something unique CounterPoint to do that I'm not going to show today. But as I mentioned earlier, this is meant to be just a general overview. Your NCR business partner will do more of a discovery. Furthermore, feel free to ask questions if there's something that feels left out to you. I'll be more than happy to answer at the end of the session. And a good time I brought this up now because I wanted to let you know that there are another pair of button actions called quote and quote recall. So if anybody listening today is in a business where you need to print quotes, retain that in the system, and then later recall that quote, that's something that CounterPoint can do for you. The water bottle button allows me to talk about a couple of pieces of functionality. First, CounterPoint supports alternate units of measure. So you can see that I've got this bottle of water in an each and a case. CounterPoint lets you have up to 6 units of measure total. So if I also wanted to track this in a 6-pack or a 12-pack or a pallet or whatever units of measure, I can have up to 6. The other thing with this bottle of water is I want to illustrate another type of kit. So this one is called a tag-along kit. And if any of you out there live in a state that requires you track bottle deposits, this might be exactly how you set CounterPoint up to do just that. Last is my inventory availability button. And with this one, I just wanted to talk for a second about how you can take other parts of CounterPoint and put them on a button at point of sale. So this report I just launched is really part of our inventory. So if we navigated over to inventory reports, you would see this one called the inventory availability report. But I happen to think this report is very useful at point of sale, and let me show you why. Let's say somebody's come in my Memphis gift shop and they want a black medium t-shirt, a Memphis tourist t-shirt, and they can't find one that's both black and medium. Well, what I can do with this report is come down here to dimension 1 and say, okay, well, let's go track and look for all the items I stock in the color black, and let's also look for all the items I stock in a size medium. And by the way, I could filter on vendor or department or any other way as well. And let's go on and just preview this report to the screen. In fact, let me make it a little bit bigger so hopefully you can see it. And so what I'm finding out now is that I am completely out of stock on black medium B.B. King shirts. In fact, I'm completely out of stock on black medium Jerry Lee Lewis shirts as well. But look, here I've got 26 black medium Elvis original shirts, and because I'm using bin locations, I should be able to go find them in my back room pretty easily because I've got them in bin 1, row 12. So again, I think this report can really be helpful at the register when you're looking to see if you've got certain merchandise on hand for a customer. By the way, I ran that report so that it would include even those things I didn't have in stock. But if I were to come over here to this inventory cell tab, I could leave the default to always be only show those items if I have at least one on hand. So if I preview that again, you'll see that it starts with the Elvis original shirt because I do have that one on hand, and it doesn't show me the B.B. King and the Jerry Lee Lewis because I didn't have those available. That's probably a much smarter way to run that report. All right, so one last thing in point of sale. Here on the upper left, you'll see that everything I've done so far has been for a walk-in cash customer. But I want to highlight that we really encourage everyone to track customers. That is how you get all the detailed sales data about who's buying what, and you're able to use your email marketing campaigns to market back to them. So in order to use those functions, you really have to be tracking customers. Now, we make it easy. If you're using a loyalty card, we could scan that card here to find the customer. I could start typing part of the customer's name or part of their phone number or part of their email address. All these different methods to help you find a customer. Here on the right, I could add a customer on the fly at this point. Once I've found the right customer, I can show a picture of the customer. That's optional, but there if you'd like to take advantage. And I actually just repriced the items on the ticket. So we let you add the customer at any point during the sale, and we will go back and reprice the lines. So if this customer is part of my loyalty program or a member or entitled to special pricing, again, it doesn't matter to us when you add them to the ticket, only that you do add them to the ticket before you finalize it. All right, so I am going to minimize point of sale. Certainly we can go back to that if your questions drive us back over there. What I'd like to do next, though, is launch the Radiant dashboard. So I'd like to show at least one other traditional report, but I thought I'd start here with our graphical report called the dashboard. First of all, here along the left, these are the different views that we have available in the dashboard. So right now, we're looking at the day view at a certain day in history. And on the day in history we're looking at, you can see some key performance indicators. For example, I can see on the day we're looking at, I did 87 tickets for $1,563 in sales. Excuse me. I can see my profit dollars for that day, my profit percent. I can see my average ticket that day was about $18 and had about 2 items on every ticket. I can see what I gave away in discounts. And down at the bottom, I can see an hourly trend for the day. So I can see that my sales started to climb around 10 a.m. and then dropped off and leveled off over the course of the day. The only other view, because I see we're running out of time, the only other view I'm going to show, unless your Q&A drives us back over here, is this bottom view called the market basket. And I like to show this one because I think it really gives a unique slice of the data. So market basket is always looking back over the last 6 weeks. And let's take an example. Let's highlight this one here. I can see that over the last 6 weeks, when somebody bought this item, called a custom coin pouch, 80% of the time, so if you look at the far right, you'll see that 80% of the time they also bought this other item called medium gold and silver coins. So you get the idea. You're able to see empirical data on what customers are buying together. And of course, there's all kinds of great things you can do with that data. Maybe you hadn't been merchandising those two items together. But now that you know they sell together that often, if you put them together, maybe you'll drive that 80% up to something higher. So I know that you all are the brilliant retailers, not me, and so I know that you certainly probably have a lot of ideas about how you might use this information now that you know you're able to see what people are buying together. All right, so the last thing I'm going to show before I turn it over to the Q&A, and I'm happy to get back into the software during the Q&A, but I am going to navigate over to Andy's reports and specifically over to this report called the Top 5 Departments Based on Sales for the Time Period Year to Date. So I've already pre-configured that button so that as soon as this launches, I'm ready to email, preview, or print the report because I've already pre-configured it to do what I want. And you'll see here on the left, it's reminding me of what I configured. I said, let's group by department, just show my top 5 departments ranked based on sales for the time period year to date. So I can see now that jewelry is my top selling department and clothing is second, art is third, so on and so forth. Here across the top, I selected the columns quantity sold, sales, cost of sales, profit, and profit percent. But you can make changes to all of this. I'll show that in just a second. Now, I also included a pie chart. And the pie chart is based on quantity sold instead of being based on sales dollars. So I can now see that jewelry is my top department, whether I base it on sales dollars or whether I base it on units sold. But here's an interesting note. Art is my second biggest department when I'm basing it on quantity sold, even though apparel is second when I'm basing it on sales dollars. So we give you a lot of ways to compare and contrast different metrics. I know you remember from earlier, too, that I've got that export button. So if it was easier just to drop this whole thing into Excel or do something else with this data, I could very easily do that. Now, I do want to show you the actual report behind all this. It's called the Merchandise Analysis Report. I was running it by department, but here you can see we've got multiple tabs. So on the Parameters tab, I'm able to change what I want to analyze. So that report, I was analyzing a group. Let's say this time I want to analyze down to the item level. I can see my top moving items, my bottom moving items, or all of my items. And we'll just look at our top 5 items. I can rank those items based on quantity sold or profit or sales. We'll go on and rank it based on sales. I can enter a starting and ending date. So I'm going to leave it based on year to date, but if I wanted to enter a different starting and ending date, I could do that. The last report was for all of my stores, but if I wanted to look at just a certain group or a particular store, I could do that. I'll go on and take the pie chart off for this next one. And let's look at one more tab. Let's look at the Select Columns tab. So this report lets you have up to 10 columns. I've got 5 currently selected, these 5 here. But maybe I don't care about profit percent this time, so I can take that column off. And here on the left, I can check mark to see all the columns available. So if I want to see cost on hand or gross margin return on investment or freshness percent, how new is my inventory, or turn rate or weeks on hand, let's go on and just add number of transactions. And let's go on and review the report again just so you can see how I changed it. So this time I want to get my top 5 items. So I can see that my Elvis belt buckle is my top selling item so far this year, with my CD being second, my poster frame being third, and so on and so forth. Here across the top, you can see the columns, and you'll notice there's not one called profit percent because I took that one off, but there is a column called number of transactions because I added that column to the report. And best of all, as I illustrated to begin with, you can just go create these parameters, attach them to buttons so that you're not constantly having to fill those screens out. You're just ready to press a button and get the data that you want or expected to get. All right, so that does conclude my hour-long overview. As I mentioned before, I am happy to stay on the call and answer questions, and it does look like we've got some questions in the Q&A manager, so just bear with me as I get over and to those questions. In fact, I'm going to go in and put up one last slide as well. I want you all to have access to my email address. If you think of questions later you wished you had asked today, certainly feel free to send me an email. Or if some of you perhaps aren't already working with one of our business partners, absolutely send me an email and I'll get you in touch with one of our business partners. All right, so the first question is from Joshua asking about the e-commerce and does it support CXML? And I'll have to be honest, Joshua, I am not the expert on e-commerce. There's a different webinar for e-commerce. Now, if you want to simply email me that question, I can get it to the right person who can email you back the answer. So feel free to make note of my email address down here at the bottom and just send that to me in email and we'll get you an answer. Let's see, Barbara's asking, we're considering a data collector to do inventory with CounterPoint. Can CP Mobile provide the same information and operation with an iPhone or an iPad? And absolutely yes, Barbara, it can. In fact, it's, in my opinion, a more current way to do it. We will still support data collection devices, but of course with CP Mobile you're getting it a little bit more real time, a little less of having to put things in a cradle and press a button to send the data to CounterPoint. Instead, CP Mobile is designed to just talk to CounterPoint as needed during the physical count process. Let's see, Hector is asking the ability to have multiple locations and warehouses and detail on where in those warehouses merchandise is. And yes, so we support multiple locations as well as separate stocking warehouses. And we have up to 4 bin locations that you can track in each location. I kind of talked about that a little bit when I looked for that black medium tourist shirt, and I mentioned that, yeah, it should be in my bathroom in bin 1, row 12. So, again, you can have multiple locations, warehouses as well, and then multiple bin locations in each location that shows where you're stocking the merchandise. Let's see, Hector's second question is, view report of inventory by location and a report for the weighted average value of my inventory. And yes, I think that merchandise analysis would do that. Why don't, Hector, I hope you're working with one of our business partners. I think that for getting into that kind of detail, it might be best to let's get them involved, and they still are going to need to do a discovery with you, and then they'll put together a one-on-one demo, and you'll be able to ask a lot more than just this one report. Whatever it is you need to see, they'll be able to put it together for you for that one-on-one demo. By the way, I also have a reports handbook. If you will send me an email, Hector, I will send you that reports handbook. In fact, any of you that want that, just let me know. It's pretty big. It's, I want to say, like 100 pages. It's a PDF file, though, that I'll email, but it goes through all of the reports, including multi-location type reports, and it was built by our training department. So each report, we give you kind of a general overview on what we think that report is valuable for, and also an actual, the report is actually run and in the book as well, so you can see an example of it. Let's see, Chris is asking, when entering customer information, is there a line for special instructions for the customer, one that would pop up when cashing them out? And yes, let's get back over and let's bring the point of sale back up. Well, first, let me close for a second, and let's go into the the customer section, not the inventory section, and let's find a customer. Let's pick Billy's Beach Shop, for example. So here I want to show you that up here on the toolbar, I can have special notes for customers. So if I set a note up, and I think mine is called Pop-Up, we'll try this out. This is a note I want to display. And, of course, you've got all kinds of editing capability here. If I want to make it bigger and, red and more noticeable because I want to put a different color on it or whatever I might want to do, I've got a lot of ability here so that now I've got the note defined. And one more quick thing I want to check is over in Setup, Point of Sale Control. Here's where, see, I needed to have named that note Auto, not Pop-Up. So let's go back to the customer, and let's bring up a note, and this time we'll call it Auto. I'll just type some stuff in because y'all don't care, right? You just want to see that it pops up. And so now when I'm in Point of Sale, if I go add Billy's Beach Shop, what's going to happen is that note is going to display automatically. So hopefully that answered that question. By the way, this customer is set to require a purchase order number. So again, you can turn that off or on a per customer basis. If you're the type of business that maybe does accounts receivable and requires an AR number, then that could be an important feature for you. All right, so the next question, would you be able to have remote access to the CounterPoint software? Yes, Charles, that is definitely something to talk to the business partner about, but most of our merchants do have remote access, whether it's through something like LogMeIn or, the partner knows about firewalls and PCI compliance and can certainly make a good recommendation for you on the best method to have remote access. Also, don't forget that I mentioned Smart Alerts earlier, and Smart Alerts is a way to get instant text or email messages throughout the day, including one called a flash sales report that you can just get texted or emailed to you automatically. Let's see, over in Join Me, there's a question. How may contacts be set up with emails in a business account? So let's get back over to the customer area again and see if I can help answer this one. So I'm going to come back into the customer area. If we pull up Billy's Beach Shop again, business, you'll see on the Contacts tab, I've got a couple preset where I can have some email addresses here for that particular business. So hopefully that helps. You'll also see that we've got the ability to add a mobile phone number. Here is the main email address on the account, here on the main tab. And so lots of different ways to store contact information. And with those email addresses, of course, those are automatically available to the Customer Connect product. You'll never have to export out email addresses and bring them into somebody else's email marketing product. Instead, Customer Connect is designed specifically to work with CounterPoint, so you don't ever have to export those out. All right, I am going to unmute the phone to just make sure there are no questions that someone would like to ask over the phone. So 1 second.
All guests have been unmuted.
Okay, I'm back, and you are no longer muted. Are there any other questions?
Yes, Andy, I meant to say how many contacts can be added, not how many. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. There are 2 right out of the box, but there's also the ability, let me show this. I'm going to get back over to the point of sale, or back over to CounterPoint. If I go to Setup, System, and Quick Setup, and I come to the Customer tab, I've got a lot of ways to set additional profile data. So, for example, if I wanted to make this, email 3 and this email 4 and this email 5, and you could call them even things like accounts payable email, sales contact email. You get to name these whatever you want to name them. When I get back over to that customer record, we'll pull up Old Billy's Beach Shop again, and I come to the Profile tab. You'll see that now I've got a place to store email 3, 4, and 5 as well. So we give you up to 20 profiles that you can use for various and sundry things.
So it's 2 contacts per business account?
Out of the box, it's 2 contacts with 2 email addresses, and then with profiles you can add additional.
Okay.
Yep. Other questions? All right, well, I guess I'll take that silence to mean there are no other questions. I do want to thank everyone for their time today. And again, I'll pause one more time just to make sure there are no other questions.
Andy, just one more question there.
Sure.
Earlier you were showing how the CP Mobile can do inventory counts and have it direct, going direct. Is that with the iPhone and the sled?
Correct. You don't have to use the sled. What the sled adds is the ability to scan while you're counting. If you wanted, though, just to manually type those numbers in, you wouldn't have to use a sled.
Okay.
Yep. Other questions? Now, one more thing I'll do real quickly before we're done. Let me get back to my desktop and let me launch, bear with me just a second, and let me launch our public website. I know that early on there was a question about e-commerce that I wasn't able to answer, and hopefully they will send me an email. But here's our public website, counterpointpos.com. Here under Solution and E-commerce, you're able to get to a lot of information about our integrated e-commerce, including getting to free e-commerce webinars. So that, if you have more questions or interest in our e-commerce, you can attend a webinar much like this one, but focused on our product. And the same goes for our email marketing. Same kind of thing. If you want to see more about the email marketing, then we have a free demo for that as well. And so a lot of good information over here in the public site, including CP Mobile, by the way. So since that was the last question that I answered, if you really want to try to understand a little more about mobile and how you can use it for sales or for physical inventory, if you're interested in how it's priced, things of that nature, it's all here on the public website.